Well, good morning, Stacy. I am glad to have this time to chat with you about Black LGBTQ plus families and their place in our work, as well as the historical significance of even using the phrase Black LGBTQ plus family. It's a wonderful alignment for us to have this conversation as we move to integrate our lens of inclusivity to include Black and BIPOC folks beyond Black History Month and other heritage months towards a 12-month long diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging approach to all our advocacy work. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I think it's one of the first conversations of this type that we're having at Family Equality. So this is really exciting.
Well, thanks again for, giving me some of your time. I know how busy you are and how busy we are. And so I want to get right to the questions. What role specifically do you feel that Black families we engage in our upcoming Family Equity Justice Program survey component will play in our advocacy and pursuit of social, economic, environmental, and family creation justice?
Well, first, I think we give the audience a definition or a bit of an overview of what family equity and justice is. And this is your project, Lee, so I'm going to give it a go and then you fill in the gaps.
Okay.
But Family Equality is undertaking what we call the Family Equity and Justice Project. Lee means on the video here with me, Zoom here with me, is the Director of Family Equity and Justice. And really what we're seeking to do is to be more inclusive in our reach and our integration and understanding of queer families. When we think about LGBTQ plus families, we don't often think about BIPOC families. We don't often picture a family that looks like you, Lee, or my family. Yeah. And what we're really wanting to do here at Family Equality, aiming to do, and what we will do, is that we will be a representation of what our community really looks like. Not only from a race and ethnicity perspective, but also from a socioeconomic perspective. So understanding that there's a wide range of socioeconomic levels and needs when we think about our families. So Lee is going to go out in rural communities and survey BIPOC families. And this is data that, correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, this survey or this data has not existed or does not really exist today, correct?
Yeah. Stacy, you touched on so many of the big points. And indeed, it is about the data that exists now. One of the things that you mentioned is there is a numeric component to this. In the latest statistics released by the Biden administration, which, very grateful for an administration that cares more about our community. They have released statistics that show 52% of the LGBTQ plus community is white. And so the other 48% is BIPOC folks. We are here and we have families. They've also released statistics around concentrations of LGBTQ plus folks in specific counties in southern rural states. So we're able to target those communities and organizations working there and individuals living and working there to find out more about what their concerns are, what their needs are, how they see themselves in today's moment when we're facing an unprecedented amount of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, an unprecedented amount of anti-Blackness in the form of curriculum bans and other sorts of things that are designed to really regress and repress marginalized communities. And FEJ is an effort to combat that with information and with stories, because stories have power. So thank you for lifting up what Family Equity Justice is.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the project. And so your question is around what role will Black families play in the work that we are pursuing in Family Equity and Justice. And I think that Black families are going to help shape this survey in a way that I don't think that we are going to expect. And when I think about, you said the concentration of BIPOC families, I think I've read some data points somewhere that there's a high concentration of BIPOC families, Black families in particular, in Louisiana and some of these other, southern states and rural areas. And what's interesting is that they're dealing with this horrible legislation that Lee mentioned earlier. They're dealing with all of the attacks that we are feeling day in and day out concerning our families. But they are also dealing with issues that I don't think have really been brought to the surface to our community. And so we think about economic security, housing, food security, all of those things while trying to raise a family or create a family or sustain a family, it's nearly impossible. So how can we talk to Black families, other BIPOC families, and understand what their needs are to build better programs? So I really think not just Black families, BIPOC families as a whole are really going to help us shape and create better programs. And I hope there are programs that can serve them better, and also that I can help maybe our partners serve this community in a way that they haven't before.
Well, I'm going to give you a shout out right now because that answer has me feeling even more inspired to get out there. It's, just to think about like the power of talking to folks who haven't been heard. And as you said, in the data, what you see is gaps. You see gaps in by race, or gaps by region, or gaps by socioeconomic level. And family equity justice, the survey component, is specifically designed to fill some of those gaps in knowledge. And we know that it's going to be of high interest to all sorts of stakeholders. So I want to move on to the second question.
Sure.
Some of the rhetoric on the right is so specifically anti-Black right now. What effect do you think that has on Black LGBTQ plus families to have Black studies curriculums banned and to see queer and queer allied Black authors like Toni Morrison and James Baldwin targeted?
Well, I mean, if I could use myself as an example, you walk around the world, you walk around let's just say, you'll just use this country. You walk around this country, oftentimes feeling disenfranchised in so many spaces. And it takes so much to be yourself and own your Blackness and own your queerness, own your Black and queerness, right? We think about intersectional identities.
Yeah.
And then when you have legislators and people who are there in their positions to serve all people, to serve everyone, banning books for people who have my history or a part of my history, people who I grew up listening to, people who uplifted me when I felt less than as a queer Black girl growing up in South Texas. You feel even more marginalized. You feel like you don't belong. You feel that we've gone a step backwards, and we are going a step backwards. So it's really about feeling more marginalized and disenfranchised in a way that does not uplift our community. Look, we're going through enough. And to have these legislators really start to, I think, tell us in a way that our history doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That our history doesn't matter. It's taken so long for us to learn our history. And as you know, Lee, we don't even know parts of our history. The history that we were taught in school was only a portion of our history. And that was still, I think, given to us in parts and pieces. And now that I feel like I have a great understanding of my history, a greater understanding of my history, now they're banning my history. And let's just think about the audience. If you're not Black and you're not Black LGBTQ plus, let me tell you, it's a hard pill to swallow. And so I think it takes everything to kind of wake up every day and still be who you are and be yourself when you feel like you're being attacked on all sides and you feel like various parts or multiple parts of your identity being attacked. So it's why we have to keep doing the work that we're doing here at Family Equality.
Thank you for lifting that up. When I think about children and Black children in all families, but specifically in LGBTQ plus families, when we were together this past weekend at a family equality event in New York, I met two young people, Joy and Ryan, two beautiful Black children who are part of a family that was created through adoption. And I saw their independence, their autonomy, their confidence. And they had that they gained that from their Black moms. And when they saw me, they looked at my badge and they said, wow, little Ryan especially. It's so powerful to see people who look like us in positions of authority, who are articulate. It's a challenge to the dominant things that we see on television, where Black men and Black women are not doing things that we necessarily identify with or think that are positive, and to see the erasure of icons like Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, and us being told that what they wrote, that Maya Angelou's poetry is somehow less than Robert Frost, I think has the potential to be catastrophic. And then just to wrap it up, I had a friend say to me this weekend that, a Black LGBTQ plus man, he was at a St. Patrick's Day parade. And he started to feel resentful. And I thought about that because I thought, well, do we have a parade for my ancestors were liberated from slavery in South Carolina Day? Our history goes back to a certain moment. Even those of us who have had the resources and the time and the capacity to trace our ancestry, it stops right at the moment that the boat arrived in the United States for most of our ancestors, if you're a Black American ancestry. And we don't get to celebrate our roots in a way that goes back centuries. And so to take away the icons that we have, to challenge those, to say that slavery was not a reality, that it was forced labor or unforced labor, some of the things that we've heard disseminated by folks on the right is hurtful. It's dangerous, because the first thing that you want to do when you want to silence people is that you want to erase their history. So I appreciate you bringing that up and sharing so generously about your experience. Well,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been so wonderful just to have a few minutes with you today to talk about this, Stacey, and to reflect on what it is to be Black and queer and our role and how we deserve and desire love, family, and freedom, which is, I know, our motto right now at Family
Our
Equality.
mantra.
Yes, it's our mantra. Thank you. And I'm just so happy to have colleagues and friends and allies in this work with you at Family Equality, and to be an ally along with you. It's inspiring all the time to me to do substantive anti-racist work for our organization, and to see in our strategic priorities and in the shifts and the moves that we make on a daily basis, efforts and commitment to transforming the narrative for generations of Black, BIPOC, and LGBTQ plus humans. So thank you.
Absolutely. I was going to say, thanks for having me. Like we're on the show. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Namaste. Yes. Thank
Namaste.
you.